Traditionally, there's three general classifications of how you can build your website. One is just to build static web pages. This is the old way of doing it. There's still a lot of websites that are built this way, but basically it's like encoding a bunch of, say, word processing documents, and just you put special links and they all are just sitting there on your server, and every page is just a file sitting on your server. And then there's software that actually makes this a lot easier, like a Dreamweaver, and some of the things that are out there. Then the total other end of the spectrum is to say, hey, we're going to go and we're going to do custom programming for everything. Now, generally, you would want to do this when your website is more of an online application. So you're building an eBay, or you're building Facebook, or you're building something like that. In the middle is this kind of cool ground, and there's a set of tools. They're generally called content management systems. There are starting to be some other names that kind of come up for them. There's certain specialized content management systems. But basically, a content management system is a way for people to publish that are not necessarily technical, but it's in general meant to build the type of website that has common popular features. And so the good thing is that typically this is used for very simple websites. This is used for very complex websites, and pretty much everything in between, you should be going the content management route. And mainly what this is solving is that for years we have all these people who call up and say, yeah, I had this website built, and every time I need to change 2 words, it takes my web development company 2 months to get back to me and change it. That's the primary thing that this is solving, is so you can change it yourself. You don't have to contact a technical person to go and do that for you. So it kind of breaks that tie to your technical resources. But in order to create and there's lots of content management systems that are out there that are trying to solve that problem. But in order for us to implement results-oriented strategies and implement those seven cornerstones we're looking at, there's really 5 general things that we need out of our platform. One, we do need to manage content. That's actually a pretty simple trick. There's lots of systems that do that. We also want it to be an application framework. If we need to, and we want to do some super advanced, sophisticated things, we want to be able to break into and sick developers on going and building out this application. We want it to have integrated marketing. We want it to not just be about building a website, but we want it to have tools that are going to help bring people into our website. And this is everything from, it could be helping with us rank better in the search engines, to it helps us integrate better with analytics and do A/B testing, to it helps us convert better, gives us forms that people can submit, things along those lines. We also want it to be social. And it's no secret that social is the rage on the web. But we don't want our website just to integrate with social. We want it to actually become social itself if it needs to. If we need to, we want to build our own Facebook with it. Now, it's rare that we're going to sit there and try to rebuild something like Facebook, but we might want to build parts of it. We might want to have members. We might want to have the ability for people to friend each other. We might want to have the ability for people to send messages to each other, for people to interact and collaborate. The 5th thing that we want is we want multi-device support. And that's just a fancy way of saying we want mobile. We want this to be able to run on a desktop, a laptop, an iPhone, a pad, all the different things that are out there. And so many years ago, so as a company, in the old days, like in the early 2000s, we used to cobble together systems to do this. We used to generally build most of the website as a static website. And then if we wanted a blog, we'd use WordPress. If we wanted a forum, we use PHP. If we wanted e-commerce, we'd use something called OS Commerce. And we'd cobble these things together. And eventually, it got to the point where people needed more dynamic functions. And we needed a single system to bring this all together, because it became very difficult to integrate these systems, these different systems that weren't always meant to talk to each other. And so we went through and defined 7 different things that we wanted. We wanted a platform that was free and open source. So free, of course, means that you don't cost anything to download it or use it. Open source means that we have full access to all the code. We can change anything we want in the system. We want something that was proven, something that's been deployed on thousands, if not millions, of websites. We wanted something that could adapt to any situation. So one day we could be building a general organizational website. The next day we're building a project management system. Next day we're building an online banking system. We wanted to be able to scale into the enterprise. While we do a decent amount of work for smaller businesses and mid-sized businesses, we also do work for very large businesses. And we wanted a system that could scale to any level. Needed to be easy to use. That's one of the challenges in a content management system is, sure, it gives you don't have to be a programmer or an HTML coder to create pages, but some are so confusing that you still have got to be pretty technically adept. So we want something simple to use, something that would be search engine friendly, that's going to help us market, and something that integrated well with social. These were our requirements like 5 years, actually these were our requirements back in 2004. Mobile would have been added to it since then. We made the ill-fated decision when we first started this of building our own because we couldn't find anything that we liked. This was 2005. In 2007, we realized there's not really any way that an agency can compete with open source projects that are out there with literally thousands of developers. We actually switched for some technical reasons to a really cool project management or a content management system called Silverstripe. And we'd been using WordPress. WordPress was too light for what we were trying to do. Silverstripe was awesome from an object-oriented programming standpoint, but it didn't have the community we needed. So we went and did a reevaluation of all the platforms that were out there in 2008, and we came back with one answer on the right way to go. And it's a system called Drupal. Drupal is actually pretty amazing at 6 of these things. The easy-to-use part is the tricky part. We're going to get to how we solve that problem, though. The first thing that really surprised me about Drupal is how many big companies were using it. And in particular, we were working on a music community at the time, and Sony BMG was building all of their music websites in it. Actually, now Universal's building their music websites, so is Warner Brothers. But there were these huge organizations that were using it, and we really had not seen enterprise adoption of an open source project. Normally, it's for people who are trying to cut their budget and do things at the small business level. And now back in 2008, it was amazing. You had the Fast Company and you had The Economist using it and so forth. But now it's incredible. Mainly the government's driving a lot of it, and there's a lot of large universities that are using it. University of Texas actually uses it. So does University of North Texas. The other thing that really impressed me about Drupal was it did not start life as a content management platform. It started life actually a lot like Facebook did. It was a guy named Dries Baltart, and he was in his dorm room back around 2000 and wanted a way for his buddies to share information and wanted people to be able to post information. And it started as a social platform, and the content management side of it came in over time. What's interesting is that all these content management systems that are out there are trying to move this way, but it's not in their DNA. It's a lot of work to get them to be social publishing systems, where Drupal started out as a social system and added these things in, which are actually much easier things to do. And so that opens up some really interesting opportunities in this day of social web. There was one huge challenge, that it's not easy to use. There is a huge learning curve to Drupal. And in particular, one of the reasons it's so adaptable is when you first install it, you literally have a blank slate. There's nothing there. There's functionality. It's sort of like if you wanted to fix a meal and you just suddenly have all these ingredients and an oven and all these different tools sprawled out in front of you, and you're like, well, I want a meal. You install WordPress, you've got yourself a blog. You install Joomla, you've got yourself a small business website. In PHP, you've got yourself a forum. Drupal, you don't have any of this. But it's also why it's so flexible, is because you can do anything you want with it. So the challenge is that about 4 years ago, when the idea for this whole sort of course came about, and really it kind of came from people saying, well, I've got a tight budget, or I want to get started on a successful website. How do I do that? And the challenge was we're trying to build something that was accessible for everyone. And at the time, we knew Drupal was not going to be that. Luckily, though, there is a concept inside of Drupal called distributions. And 2 major things happened. One is that when Drupal went from version 6 to version 7, which it went to 7 about 1.5 years ago, this version is much more usable. They did a lot of user studies around it. because Drupal was originally built for developers, not for non-technical people. So they did a lot of user studies around it and built a much more usable version. The other thing that happened, though, is that there's these distributions where you basically can now build a website that's no longer a blank slate. There's actually some phenomenal distributions. One's actually out there for a community. There's ones for a university website. There's ones out there for a commerce. You want to start an e-commerce store. There's ones for like a project management website. There's all kinds of, if you want to run an event, there's a distribution for that. And so we wanted to build a distribution that made it very easy out of the box to give you basically what any organization would need to build their site and to market. So things like events calendars, blogs, forums, things that are typically used by businesses and various different types of nonprofits. So I'll show you real quick how this system works. And there's actually one other advent that's come into the Drupal world very recently that makes Drupal dirt simple. So this is a site that's been installed. I'm not going to go through the installation. It's a fairly straightforward process. There are hosting companies that have got sort of these streamlined one-click installations. I just want to show you the basics of how this works. And we're going to spend very little time actually on the technical parts of this so we can get back to the marketing, but I do want to show you the basics. So when it's first installed, there's not a whole lot here. There is a back end to any content management system that allows you to control the content and other things. In Drupal, you get to it by going to user, and I've just got a simple password, log in, and now we've got a menu bar up along the top that's giving us all kinds of different controls. So really, our website just turned into an application, a lot like Microsoft Word or other types of applications you'd see. And so the cool thing about this is that, let's say in the old days that you had a bunch of pages on your website and you wanted to change one thing on those pages, you'd have to go back to every single file on your server and make that change. The neat part about a content management system is, let's say, for example, we want to change the name of our website from Open Enterprise to Results Bikes. You can go in through the admin, save this information, and now it's changed it, and it's changed it actually on every page. Now this site right now only has one page in it. But if there were more pages than that, you would see it changed on every page. And you can see that I didn't have, there's no HTML requirements, no programming requirements to make that happen.
But you have to know the effective data dictionary.
You have to know where things, yes, you do have to know where some things are. For the most part, most things that you need on a regular, so most things that most people need are fairly easy to find. And I will say that in general, you've got two categories of people that are using the system. You've got site builders that are actually affecting the way the way the site lays out. They do have to know more. And then you've got the knowledge workers. Those are the people creating the pages, managing the content, maybe managing users, maybe managing comments. There's actually very little you have to know. That stuff's pretty all kind of grouped in simple areas. So how you actually add content to a system like this, I'm going to run back home real quick. And I've got this link. And it pulls up a page. So I'm just going to create an About Us page. I'm going to click Save real quick, and we've now created a page. If I want to change that page, I just click on an Edit tab. And now I'm back into an editor. One thing I do want to add is that I want to add this as a menu item. So I'm just going to go down here and click this, click Save. And now I've got my home page. I've got our About page that we just created. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more pages just so I've got something to play with. So we might want to have a page for bikes. I'm not going to put any content, any main content. I'm just going to put a title. So we've got bikes, and there's our bikes page, which is blank right now. In fact, actually, a lot of times when we build out websites for clients, we're putting either normally lorem ipsum or just leaving these blank and building out the structure, and then they put the content in themselves. So we got service, add a menu item, save, and add one more page, and add a rental. So if there's a place where I can go and see all my content, administer page, and from here I can access any content on my site. If you've got a basic website, it's only 10 pages, you're not going to spend much time here. But if you've got a site that's thousands of pages, you spend a lot of time on this back side. Just some other things you can do is that you notice that these links have shown up here in this main menu. It's real simple to go and change these. And this is a little bit where, yeah, you've got to know where a couple things are, but in general, your knowledge workers aren't playing with this. This is going to be your site builders. So if I can edit the menu, and it's got me a drag and drop, so I want to put the home back up at the top. I want to put the about us at the bottom. Click save. And now my menu's been rearranged. So that's the basics of how a content management system works. Yes, there are free templates, and then there's, in fact, we're going, actually, let me check what my checklist is. That is an excellent, that was my next thing I was going to demo.
Segue.
Yep, there you go. All right, so this is the...
We're looking at, this is the thing that builds the site. This is not the site.
It's both together.
I understand that, but that's one of the confusing things about Drupal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
I like to see it. I like to see the site.
And
I like to see the thing that works on the site.
sure, sure. And probably a good way to think about it is that really this paradigm's used over and over on the web. So Facebook is sort of like this. And then there's lots of other CMSs out there that use this same paradigm, that the software and the site are one and the same. But if you think about it, Facebook's really kind of the same way, particularly if you ever use YouTube. You know, there's a place where you go and you edit. You go and you edit your videos, and then you've got the front end where you see what all those edits look like. Facebook works the same way, although the one thing that's a little bit different about how those work is typically you edit just little components of things, and actually the way Drupal 8 is going to work is going to have more of that. You can do some of that stuff, where here normally the whole page you edit. And if you want to see the site, one of the easiest ways to do it is I normally just open up another browser. So right now we're logged in. And so we get this menu up along the top. But if I open up another browser, I'm not logged in, and I go to the site, now you're getting sort of the front end. You're getting the front end experience that someone just visiting the site would get.
And then just hit F9 every time you want to make a change and save it.
Yeah.
Is it always on 8082 like that?
No, that's just something. So I'm what?
That's where I said it in Apache.
Yeah, and so I'm running a local development environment. I'm basically running this website. This machine's acting as a web server, and that's just coming from the setup of the software that's running on the machine.
Right, but could you do it by putting the local host URL without your computer name on the left side of the dollar?
If that's the way your local environment's set up. That's not a Drupal thing. That's just whatever web server you're running. So yeah, if you're running a hosted web server, you're not going to end up with 8082 on the back.
But on your Drupal stack on your development machine, you will have that 8082 stack.
Maybe. That's coming out. That's coming out of the software that's being installed. You can turn that off if you want. And it's only doing that just so it won't conflict if you're already running something else. So you brought up being able to change a theme. So one of the cool things about a content management system is it separates. Pretty much all of them work this way. It separates the data and content from the look of the website. I'll kind of show you how that works. So in Drupal, if I go to Appearance, and here are several themes. The site will come with certain themes, and you can download additional ones. Some are free, some are paid. Or you can have a developer, a designer custom design something. And I go to Set to Default. It's now changing the whole look of my website. I run back to the home page. And we see that we've now definitely got a different looking website. Our menu's up at the top, although we still have a menu. You've got a little bit of a logo treatment, some gray, some different things like that. It's a little easier to see if I go to the About Us page. And we'll see a little bit more as we build it out. So, that's kind of how theming works. And I'm not going to get that deep. If you guys are interested in learning more about Drupal, we do have a more technical. I just want to show the basics of how a content management system works, so we can get back into strategy and marketing.
Quick question, do you recommend an open source like Drupal over the old style Dreamweaver and stuff like that?
If you're trying to build a results-oriented website, yes. If you want to build an online brochure, and that's what you're familiar with, then that's fine. So the two main things so Dreamweaver.
I built a Drupal site.
Yeah.
I'm just
And that brings up a good point. So Dreamweaver basically is software, and there's other Microsoft Front Page, if that's still around. But these are things that basically give you a desktop application that create all those individual files. The problem with that approach is you can't really do any user engagement. Now, there's some basic stuff that you can do. You do basic form submissions and things like that, but we can't do advanced really engagement type things. There's all kinds of advanced features that you can do in a system like this, such as publishing RSS feeds, aggregating RSS feeds, allowing people to sign up, giving people access and permissions so people can only see certain things. Like, a very typical thing you want to do in marketing is you might write a white paper, or you might write an ebook, and you only want people who have registered to be able to access it. That kind of stuff I don't even know if it's possible in Dreamweaver. We haven't worked in Dreamweaver in a long time. Yeah. But if you're just trying to do a quick brochure, online brochure, Dreamweaver is an okay way of going. Okay. So the important part about a content management system is it allows non-technical subject matter experts to become publishers. And the sequence that I've seen a lot of people go through in the life cycle of their website is they start out by building a brochure or website, most likely built in Dreamweaver. And they say, so in the bike shop, we need to show off our bikes, so let's have some pictures of some bikes, let's have some write-ups, let's talk about our rentals, let's talk about all this kind of stuff. And what people eventually realize that have built a website like this is no one's going to it. It just sits there. And maybe they put it on their business cards and they're stationary, and those are the only people that go there, but it's not really doing anything for them. Then the sequence you see is we need to get people to our website. And the way that we got people to websites in the 20th century, or the way we got people to do things or recognize our brand in the 20th century, was advertising. And so a lot of people turned to advertising. They might do billboards, they might do TV commercials, radio commercials, they might do direct mail, they might put ads on Facebook or something like that, but they're buying media in some way. The problem is that this old form of advertising doesn't really work particularly well. They might be getting some traffic, but it's normally pretty inefficient to use these old means. And really there's a lot of reasons why. The first is that ads have basically become noise. The ad world has become so successful that we are inundated with hundreds of ads every day, and our brains have become very good at tuning them out. We also have media delusion. What's interesting is, in the old days, you used to just watch TV. Now, if you ever observe, and I remember doing this back in 2005, you observe how college kids consume media. It's like they might have the TV on, but they've got Facebook, and they're texting on their phone, and they've got all these different things that are commanding their attention. And the interesting thing is, if anything comes up that's noise, they just divert their attention. So an ad comes up, they just look at something else. So we've got all these different ways. So media's been deluged. We have ad circumvention. And so you've got satellite radio, you've got TiVo where you can skip commercials. We've got all these different, you have pop-up blockers online. There's all these technologies that are out there that allow us to circumvent these ads. And really one of the biggest is people don't trust corporations anymore. I'll get into this a little bit more on the social media side. But At one point, people really did believe when a company said that their product was the best, the fastest, the whatever, they believed them. These big corporations, they had to be authorities. But then they started to realize after the Enrons and the Tycos and the WorldComs and all these companies that were super awesome that all of a sudden didn't exist anymore, maybe these companies aren't being all that truthful with us. And so if you have a website, you're going, well, that advertising thing's not working particularly well for me. I just spent a whole lot of money on all these media buys and didn't get anywhere. And I say, well, maybe I should go where people are searching. People aren't using Yellow Pages anymore. They're using the search engines. So I'm going to go get some listings in the search engines. And what's kind of neat is to watch people that have had websites for years suddenly start doing some search engine optimization and go, you know what? Someone called me the other day and said they found my website. They went to Google, or they walked in my store and they found us. And so search engine optimization, and it's been around for a while, but it's actually a pretty powerful way of driving traffic. It's because it's where people are going to find things now. Just like everyone went to the Yellow Pages a couple decades ago, everyone goes to search engines. The thing that's really neat about it is you can get very specific about what people are searching for. If you went to the Yellow Pages and you're looking for you're looking for a beach cruiser bike, your option is to go to the bicycle section. There's no bike cruiser bicycle section. There's just the bike section, and to start calling around. Maybe someone in the ad says something about that, but in general, you just start calling around. Where if you go to Google, you could say, I'm looking for a beach cruiser bike. Or maybe you're looking for a very specific style of bike, or you're looking for a certain specific style of rental. And so we can get very specific, what's called the long tail. Identified need. People, when they're going to the search engines, they know they're ready to buy. It's not like traditional advertising where you're just flooding a bunch of stuff out, hoping you're going to hit some people that are ready to buy. And that's where you're getting into all steps of the buying cycle. In general, people go through 3 steps. When it's a more significant buy, people go through 3 general steps. There is the information gathering. So you want to go and find out, okay, who sells bikes in my area? What bikes are out there? Then you have the qualifying. So after you figured out, generally the direction you go, now you want to narrow it down to maybe 5 different people that you're going to compare. So you're gathering the requirements. Then you're ready to buy. The cool part is, if you're placing well in the search engines, people are normally going to the search engines at all 3 steps, and there's your ad right when they need it. What I love is my brother years ago was actually in sales consulting, and they taught companies how to do all these techniques for selling better and so forth. And he said, after all those years and trying all those techniques, the one thing I found that sells better than anything else is if you have what people need when they're ready to buy. It's about timing. And you could totally mess up the whole meeting, but if you have what they need when they're ready to buy, and that's what the search engines give us, is they allow us to connect with people when they're ready to buy. And so the search engines are great. It's a great way of driving traffic, but now we've got a whole other world around us that allow us to do even more than what was possible before, and this is this whole side of social. I'll get a little bit more into the social side, why this is so powerful. Let's take a look at a couple things. Social is the best way to create awareness, latent need. So for example, you might not even be aware that you want a bike, but someone posts a picture of some bike trek they went on, or they went bike hopping or something like that on Facebook, and all of a sudden going, hey, that sounds like maybe a cool thing. So social is a highly effective way of creating awareness. Searchers are researchers. What's interesting is that a lot of people, when they search, if they know what they're doing online, and they might go, okay, I'm looking for a beach cruiser bike, and they find this one store. Well, they might go, I want to validate that the store really knows their stuff. In other words, they placed well on Google, that tells me something. And of course, they said all kinds of pretty superlatives about themselves when I went to their website. But I want to see what my peers are saying. What are people like me saying? Or maybe authorities. And they're going to go find that validation in social. They might say, what are people tweeting? What people are saying in Facebook? What are people saying, maybe in some other areas? And so this is a sequence that we see is a lot of people, they might use Google to find something, but then they're going to go and look at all these different social indicators to find out, is this really valuable? People trust other people. People do put a lot of trust into Google, but ultimately you're going to trust a human voice more than you're going to trust a machine. And you're going to get that human voice through social. It enables champions. So let's say someone comes to Google and they say, all right, well, I'm going to go buy this beach cruiser bike, and they go find the perfect, cutest little bike that they want. And I'm actually relating to an actual story one time. And I won't get into it. And all of a sudden they go, boy, that was the greatest experience. I just really enjoyed that. They can't go back to Google and tell the world how great the experience was. But if they're on Facebook, if they're on Twitter, if they're on these other social platforms, now they can go be champions for these brands. They can spread the word. And it's extremely sticky. We've been seeing in the 90s that PR was the way things was moving, but traditional PR, you can only tell so many people, and how long are they going to remember it? You post about it online, and it's there forever. Now I'll say, on Twitter it goes by pretty fast. But if someone writes a blog post or someone posts photos, that stuff's there forever. And then the other thing is that now more and more social boosts search. So any type of website that's engaged in social and gets all kinds of buzz and activity around social, that's going to actually boost up where you place in the search engines. So we want to combine these two things together. The question is, what's the best way to combine these things together? Well, it's around publishing. It's around content. Now, there are lots of ways and exotic ways of doing it, but the best place to start is dealing with content. And the idea is that, traditionally there's these people over here that publish content. They're newspapers, they're magazines, people like that. But these content management systems, particularly WordPress, which I could put my hand off to WordPress, has enabled everybody to be a publisher. Drupal's doing the same thing. There's other systems out there. Joomla, there's hundreds of these systems that are allowing anybody to be a publisher. And companies are using this and starting to think that we are a publisher of knowledge. We're a publisher of expertise. And companies need to start thinking that it's not just up to newspapers and the media to do this, that companies are now in the media business. So this has led to this phrase, content is king. I will say one of the dangerous parts of this phrase is that content is very important, but only really great content. 5-10 years ago, any content would work because it was easy to fool the search engines. And really there wasn't as much quality on the web. Nowadays, it's got to be about great content. So it's not that content is king, but great content is king. How do we produce great content? Well, the traditional model of advertising is interrupt and repeat. What we need to move towards is thinking about delight and engaging. How do we write things that delight our users? And so really our goal is this. And this comes from a fantastic book. 2 books I'd recommend reading in this area. One's called Inbound Marketing. Another one's Content Rules. And I've read a bunch of other ones that just are a bunch of fluff. I won't get into what those are. But these 2 get into some pretty good theory and meat. But I love the way they phrase it. Produce great stuff and people come to you. Produce really great stuff and people start championing you. I phrased it a little differently, but so how do we produce great stuff? Actually, before I do that, let's talk about what content is. Most of us relate to written content, and on the web there's a bunch of different forms. Articles are pretty much everyone's familiar with. They're going to be very similar to normally magazine articles. Blogs are generally very similar. In fact, they could be the exact same thing, although they tend to be a little bit more editorialized than, say, a newspaper article would be. In fact, it's actually kind of interesting that some journalists struggle to transition into blogging because they've been taught that they're not supposed to editorialize. Where a lot of blogs are popular because it is a person's opinion. There is editorial. Wikis, forums, white papers, all those different types out there. What's also important to realize is that there's all kinds of multimedia, videos, photos, presentations, such as this presentation you can post on a really cool site called SlideShare, and so forth. So the nice thing, though, is while a lot of these mediums are very different, there's a lot of commonality between them. So we're going to start with just one, and that's going to give us a good basis for learning some good fundamentals that we need for all the other ones. And we're going to start off with a blog. There's a lot of reasons why I like, when you're first starting out down this content strategy path of starting with a blog. Now, I will say this. If you have a passion for video, do video. If you have a passion for photos, Gio's got a passion for photos, do photos. But if you really don't know where to start, a blog is one of the best places to do it. It's simple. It's very easy to use. It acts as a great hub. What's interesting is the old days, and we still do this to some extent, but we used to build, there'd be a press room area, and there'd be a blog area, and there'd be an events area, and there'd be all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of people that have moved to their blogs just all their dynamic content. And it might not be perfect for an event, but it actually works fairly well. It's great for teaching us the fundamentals of how to build great content. We have a lot of control over blogs. They're social, and that's kind of the nice thing. And so if we were to post videos to YouTube, well, that's definitely social. But we only have so much control because ultimately we're publishing on someone else's platform, where if we have our own blog, we have that control. We also have ownership of the content. A lot of times when you're publishing content, photos on Flickr, videos on YouTube, content to Facebook, you no longer own that content. And so the nice thing about a blog that you're running on your own website, you own it. And it's fantastic for SEO. So this is the process that we use for our content strategies. And in fact, what you're going to notice is that the process that we use to figure out the features of our website is very similar to the process that we're going to use for writing great content. We're going to start with the results. In the previous section, we started to go through and look at what are some of the results that we want from our online presence. Well, when it comes to content, you want to define a result for every piece of content. So always be writing purposefully. But you want to be able to, oh, that wasn't right. Wow, that backed me up a lot. That must be the special end presentation key. There we go. Okay, so each piece of content you write, you want it to have its own goals, but you want to use your main site goals as a reference for that. Audience. In the previous section, we talked about that you can brainstorm through all these different potential audiences, and you want to boil them down to a good, manageable set. Well, for our content, we want to actually break that back apart. So we want to get down to writing specifically for the new mom or parent that wants a bike. Now, you can write for more general audiences, but some of the most effective content is for a very specific audience. But the nice thing is that we generated a lot of this information in the planning for who the users are of our website. We can use that information again here. How do we generate topics? The best way to generate topics are the audience-driven ones. And pretty much everyone starts the same way, conjecture. What do you think your audience wants to know about? Or better yet, let's ask them. There's actually some pretty clever ways of monitoring. So one thing you can do is that if, for example, you are a retail store, you just keep a notepad of types of questions people are asking. One of the things I used to do a lot of work in call centers, and one of the favorite things that I like to do is you can either do it the old-fashioned way where there's a notepad sitting with all the reps, or there's some sort of messaging system, or set up something that whenever interesting questions come through, that there's a way of logging those, and they can go into a queue of topics that we can blog about or write wikis or customer service articles about. You can also monitor social media. We're not going to get into it in this session. I'm sure Gio will get into some of this as we go into some other areas. But there's ways to set up. So, for example, if you're running a bike shop, you could say something like, well, I want to see bike for sale. And I want to monitor people on Twitter who are mentioning that. And you can even say, in my area. Or I want to monitor Facebook. Or I want to monitor blog posts. There's ways of monitoring things that are going on in social. You also can monitor search. There are tools, and we're going to look at one in a minute. There are tools that will allow you to monitor what people are searching for. Now, they're not perfect. You're not going to get perfect answers, but you can get general ideas of what people are searching for. And so these are all great ways of figuring out what are our customers, our audience looking for. Now, some people say that this is all you should focus on. The one challenge that we've had, because we work with a lot of companies on how to get their blog up and going, and it's hard to get people motivated to write. And so I like when the staff can write about whatever they're passionate about. What project are they working on right now? What cool problem have they solved? We want to relate it back to our audience in some way, but I think there's nothing wrong with letting the people who are authoring write about what they're passionate about. You don't want to let it get out of control. But it'll help whenever you sort of see that, oh, I got to go figure out what an audience writes. I got to put myself in their head, and they kind of get sort of locked in that cycle. The other thing, I would use this one sparingly, is that you can have some organization-driven content. Do not sell. There are some of the early blogs that we did for some of the larger organizations, their corporate communications department decided that it was just a way of selling. They were just going to put out ads. That's not the way to do it. But if you do have some important news and release, maybe you've got something you want to make about a client, you want to do a success story or something like that, there are times where it's appropriate to put out things that are more organizational driven. So once we've done our planning, we've got a good list of topics. I really recommend the same process. We create a backlog of topics. And you've got a team that goes and grabs topics that they like and they start writing on them. How do we write for the web, though, in a way that's effective? Well, the first part is the tone. One of the best ways as far as style is that I like it to be a cross between literature and journalism. Now, this can change depending on what it is you're trying to write. If you're writing, for example, for a children's book, it's pretty much going to be all literature driven. But most businesses, you're trying to communicate some facts. That's where the journalism side comes in. But you don't want it to just be a plain article. You want to bring in stories. That's the way we've communicated as humans since the beginning of time, or recorded history, is we tell stories. And so always be mixing in stories as you go along. Be human. Corporate communications departments love to suck the human out of blog posts. And really, human is what is connecting with other people. It's what's made this whole thing so special. Is that companies are no longer this ivory, this ivory tower that's everywhere. Every word is jargonized. These are the real people behind these messages, and we want to connect with other humans. Share, solve, or don't shill. I actually took this line directly from. I love it. I took it directly from Content Rules, but. I mean, simple. People don't want to be sold to. Ask what problems are we trying to solve. Now, you can shill a little bit, but do it at the end. And do it after you've delivered value. Delight and surprise. The difference between a good article, just like the difference between a good movie, is that one thing you weren't expecting. That little extra. And so look for what could that be. I mean, we've seen all these movies that have these interesting twists. The one I find really interesting is that I noticed I was looking at top movies, and the one where it's Bruce Willis and the kid sees dead people. I forget what that's called. And it's still one of the top rated movies. Okay, doesn't everyone know that but I mean that was such an amazing twist in that movie. That really kind of skyrocketed it, to being one of the top grossing or top rated, I guess on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever the website is. And I was kind of surprised it's still so well rated. I'm like, everyone should know what the twist is by now. All right, so let's take a look at adding a blog post. Now, so far, all we've looked at is adding basic pages to our website. There's something special. Oh, and one thing I should mention is I've been talking about Drupal, and I did also talking about Open Enterprise. I should rephrase a little bit of this. We're using the Open Enterprise distribution of Drupal, which adds several things on top of Drupal. This is still Drupal. Everything that you do, everything that's in here, you can do in Drupal. But this is adding certain layers on top of it that you don't have to go figure out. One of the coolest layers that it's adding is something called apps. And so the challenge in Drupal is that you can download all these modules that are basically these sort of ingredients. And you've got to know how to go turn them into a meal or into a dish. Where apps are sort of the TV dinners, where it's already pre-cooked, or maybe a little bit fancier in TV dinners. But these are the ordering out, and someone brings you everything all cooked. But the cool thing is you can break apps down back to their components and change them up and remix them however you want. So one of the apps that we have is our blog app. And basically, this is going to go and install a blog for us. If you want to understand what all would be involved in building this from the ground up, we've got another session coming up on June 22nd.
All your ratings start off at 5 stars?
The rating system, so apps is a completely new system, and ratings has not been implemented yet. That's just there. That's just kind of there as a placeholder for when it does get implemented. The concept, of course, here was to try to make something as similar to the iPhone App Store as possible, which has ratings. They're eventually going to do it. Well, wait a second. What just happened there? I just hit a Murphy's Law and try to do a live demo, and
Yeah, that's always a bad idea.
huh. Oops, I did not want to disable it. That's all right, I'll just re-enable it. Oh, come on. The other thing that's really kind of neat about apps is that generally when you're building out like a section of a website, you normally will have to go download a bunch of different modules to do things. So for example, I'm going to re-enable this. So for example, the blog has the ability to schedule something. So you can write a blog post now and schedule to post a few days from now. And that's a special module inside of Drupal. And so to make that happen, you have to go download it and so forth. What's kind of neat is this goes and downloads everything that it needs automatically. Which, if you've ever worked with base Drupal, okay, there we go. So a couple of other cool features. So it's just installed the functionality for a blog. One tricky part about the functionality is it doesn't look like anything without content. So we want to have some demo content in there. That's what this button's for. So now it's going to put in a few demo blog posts. So now we can actually see what our blog looks like. Now you could just go and add your own blog post in and see what it looks like, but
So
then
are
you're...
those blog posts live?
They would be, yes, they would be live
Okay.
on the site. And I can talk to more about like how you would develop this in like in more of an enterprise type environment. And then the one last thing is there's all these sort of like decorators, like what are our recent blog posts? What are similar blog posts? There are things called blocks. That's what all these are. I'm just going to go ahead and accept them. The defaults work pretty well for this. And then we'll see what our blog looks like. And there's our blog. So if I go here, and these are the blocks that I was talking about. So we only have one user in the system, the admin. So all the blog posts got assigned to them. But if we had multiple ones, then you could see all the different bloggers, and you click on it, and it would show you only that person's blog posts. We also have taxonomy, so we can categorize our blog posts, and then you can do everything by date. And the cool thing about the demo is now you can go and add new blog posts, and then unenable it, and it only disables. It put in 3 blog posts. It automatically disables all 3. So let's go ahead and we're going to add a blog post real quick. So I've got this button right here. It says Add Blog Post. And we are going to write a blog post about losing weight by biking. I'm going to click Publish. And so this is the actual post itself. If I click on Blog, we're going to go back to that river of posts. And what we see is that there's the new post that we just posted. So what's kind of cool about a content management system is that it created the page that if I click on this link right here, it created this page. But it also came back and updated this list here. It also updated the blog archive list here. And then if I add a different author, so it automatically updates all these different areas. And that's one of the things that gets kind of tricky with something like Dreamweaver, is you don't have all these live areas being updated. So now let's take a look at styling that blog post. Oh, we'll keep doing that. So how do we style our blog post to make it engaging for humans? We want to write in a style called an inverted pyramid. This is actually the way newspapers are classically written. And basically the idea is that the most important information is at the top. And there's 2 really good reasons for doing this. One is that people have very short attention spans. And we want to get them the most important information, even if they stop reading a third of the way into the article, halfway through the article. We want them to know the most important thing. The other reason is that as humans, we need to understand context before we can understand details. Now, if someone's committed into writing or into reading an academic paper, that's a difference. But when we're talking casual reading, we want to introduce the conceptual context of that material before getting into the details. So one key part of this is writing great headlines. Some tips for writing great headlines is your headline should always pass the what's in it for me test. We said that you're writing for a particular user. Put yourself in that user's head and say, does that headline speak to what's in it for that user? And so the headline that we just had on the one we posted was biking for weight loss. Maybe that does, maybe it's not. Maybe there's a way to make that a little bit stronger. We'll look at that in a second. We want some sort of hook. We want to pique curiosity. We want to say something, and this is where a little bit of that interrupt from the advertising world comes in. We want to say something that people just weren't ready for, that gets their brain to jump out of this, hey, here's something mundane, and here's something's interesting. Unique analogies are a great way of doing this, particularly if you compare something to current events. So, how to be Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter on your bike. I can't believe they actually are making that movie. I don't know if you guys have seen the promos for it yet, but they are actually making a movie about Abraham Lincoln being a vampire hunter. Related to a trending topic, lists. Lists are extremely powerful. In fact, you go and look at blogs, you're going to see 5 reasons why you should do this, or 7 secrets to losing weight using a bike. In fact, what's interesting is I'm an engineer. I like round numbers. You're actually more effective using odd or unusual numbers. So 7, 13, 11, as opposed to the David Letterman top 10 lists. And then incorporating power words, secrets. Great power words are things like hints, how-tos. In fact, if you Google power words or headline power words, you'll find some really good lists of what power words are that are out there. So this is the most important overriding thing to remember, is that the goal of the headline is to get people to read the first sentence. The goal of the first sentence is to get them to read the second, and then the goal of the second is to get them to read the rest of the article. Very different than how we were taught to write essays in high school. So let's take a look at I don't remember what I was going to do there. I think I went over a few. All right, so that's sort of the how to write and how to stylize it. Now let's talk about the visual stylization of our content. We want to make our content scannable and chunkable. People have very short attention spans online. They will look for visual cues in your content to determine whether or not they want to read the content, and we want to enable them or aid them in doing that. One way of doing that is don't create long scrolling pages. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but in general, don't create long scrolling pages, and break your pages up into small sections that people can follow. There are many different ways of doing that. Headers. So you've got 6 different levels of headers, just like most word processors give you several different layers of headers. Use them to break up content. Bullets. Really writing a lot. Use bullet lists as much as possible. I know your grammar teachers from high school wanting you to have all these like comma lists and all that kind of stuff. Bullets are actually a much more effective way for writing on the web.
Numbered, dots, squares.
Either. Well, the two types you're going to deal with are unordered and ordered. Use ordered if it makes sense. In other words, if you're describing a sequential list, use a numeric order. But if it's just a list of bullets that are not necessarily in a sequential process, use unordered. Most of the time you're going to use unordered, which is just going to be round bullets. And the style, though, really comes down more to how your CSS is written. So how the styling of your site is done. Generally, you're only specifying this is a top-level bullet, this is a second-level bullet, and so forth. So that's more of a stylistic issue of are they bullets, are they triangles, are they thumbs up, something like that. You also have the ability to do italics, bold, block quotes, put content into sidebars. Use all of these to your benefit. A great way is look at how some cool magazines are written. I like looking at Fast Company. And look at the way they stylize their articles. Follow a lot of those things are available to you on your website. Media integration. So decorate your content with photos, videos, even audio, possibly slide presentations. Links. Links to read more. There's 2 general types of links you want to look at. One is a Wikipedia style. These sort of inline that allows you to dig deeper into a topic. The other is at the end of the article or maybe in a sidebar, links to related content. In general, it's good to have at least 3 related articles available. I found myself today on CNN for quite a while when I was just trying to get some information about the new Apple products because of all the read more links they had, and they did a great job presenting them. And then the one last thing we want to do with our content is we want to categorize it. We talked about that the end of the 20th century was the information age. Now we're just inundated with information. We need to come up with good ways for people to find what it is they're looking for. And a good content management system is going to give you some good tools for doing that. I'm just going to do this real quickly. I'm not going to get too much into it. But if I click in here and go to edit, and I can edit my blog post. A better title than really biking for weight loss is, I'm going to go with Fat to Fit. How a bike can change your life. What might be even a stronger title is if I could do it as a numbered list and do 7 ways a bike can change your life. But this is kind of a good, maybe not the strongest, but it's a stronger, has a little bit more like, oh, change your life, how would a bike do that? And then styling, you have these up here. You have these buttons up here to work with. So if I want to, I can just bold by clicking that. Our headers are sitting over here. And so we've got all the different headers that we can work with for different sizes. You will notice the H1 is missing. The reason for that is because this automatically becomes your H1, and that's your main page title, and you only want to have one of those on a page. So you start with the H2s.
Can you do tables within tables on a regular Drupal page? I mean, so that you do have frame set areas?
Layouts. I'll tell you what. Let me. That's a bit of a complex question.
Is there a way to do it? Yes or no?
There's ways to do. Oh yes, there's ways to do it. The problem, the typical problem with Drupal is not is there a way, but there's normally many ways of doing it, and which way is the best. Yeah, and it depends what you're trying to pull off on which way is the best.
I think of things as having stuff over on the side.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically that's managed through the block system, but there's a lot of other subsystems that can be employed there. So I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to cheat a little bit that I've already got one that's already marked up, so we can just take a look at what a marked up page might look like. I'm going to pull one little trick here because I've already got markup. So this is what's going on behind the scenes. Is there's these little markup things. That's what those WYSIWYG editors do. Is they automatically put that stuff in, so you don't have to deal with it. Oops, I really got to do one more thing. So normally you would just style it using the WYSIWYG editor, but because I'm pasting in from something else, I'm doing it a slightly different way. And so now we see an article that's broken up. It's easier for people to follow. Got some bullets. Got some links at the bottom. The way. So you want to be sprucing it up. Next thing we want to do is we want to add an image. Out of the box, there's an accent image that's really easy to work with, and we can use it over here. I've got a file already saved on my computer. All I got to do is just select it, upload. The one thing it's going to want me to put in is alternative text. This is really for people who are visually impaired. There's readers that will go and turn the text of a page into audio, and they don't know how to read an image, so this is what gets read instead of the image. So you just want to describe it. So it's like bikers jumping, and I click save. And what's really kind of neat about this is this image is automatically put here. I can upload an image of any size, and it's going to crop it down to that size for me automatically. I don't have to open up Photoshop. I don't have to do any of those kinds of things.
Crop it or scale?
Yeah, however you want to do it. I think that's a crop and a scale. So there's sort of like a processing subsystem that was automatically set up for you as a part of this app. But there's a processing subsystem that you can do. You can rotate it. You can turn it black and white. In fact, there's even extension modules that will put watermarks on it, put all kinds of weird treatments. I think that way, I'd have to look at it, but I think the way that one's set is that it's a scale and a crop, one after the other. But it brings it down to a size without having to pull out an image manipulation software to make it happen. Last thing I was going to show is the way the taxonomy system works for categorizing. In this particular app, out of the box, two what are called vocabularies were set up. One is free tagging. So the author of this article can type in whatever they want there. Another one is a controlled taxonomy, which a site administrator would have to say what's available. So for example, I might put in here weight loss. One thing you may have noticed real briefly is there's a little blue blip that was going on there. What that's doing is it's going to check to see is this tag already been entered as you start to type it, so that way you don't get like 1,000 different spellings and capitalizations and so forth. Because there's no words in the system yet, it didn't come back with anything. But so I can do weight loss, diet, and I click save. One of the things it does is down here, I've got this way of looking at tags. In fact, if I go back to this blog, we notice that, hey, here my tags show up automatically, and now I can see a filtered list. And then what's really kind of cool is if you have multiple authors, you can actually filter by, I want to see the weight loss articles that this one particular author wrote, or I want to see the ones this author wrote in this month. And so you've got like all these different ways of filtering this content. So it allows people to get to things very specific. As far as, I'll show you real quick just how the controlled vocabulary works. It's underneath taxonomy. Here we see our two different vocabularies, and I can see a list of terms. All that's in there is uncategorized. You can sit there and add a new item, and that way the site authors can have a controlled set of vocabulary. So you've got both of those options available to you. If you want to get really crazy, there actually is an extension module that allows visitors to the site to add their own vocabulary terms, to tag things. So sort of a whole community free tagging, what's called a folksonomy. Folksonomy, yeah. So folksonomy is where you basically have people who are not, like when you basically have, it's sort of like crowdsourcing classification. So it's people who aren't necessarily experts in a certain thing, but they describe it. So a great example is if you've got some sort of museum that's got all kinds of pictures of paintings, and then anyone who comes to the website can sit there and type in what they think that painting's about. So that's where like folksonomies come in. And so there is a module. There is a module that allows you to do that. Built in, there's the ability for authors to do it and for the site administrators to set control. Then the one last thing is once we have built our post, we want to publish it. We've already seen how we publish it to our website, but there are other properties that are going to be out there. We're going to look at these a little bit more in the social media section, but you've got Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, where you might not post the whole blog post, but at least the fact that you posted something to these. And there's all kinds of third-party sites. There's other blogs out there. There's news sites. There's so forth. And so we want to be able to make our content available to them. The easiest way to do this is through RSS feeds, through syndication. And the blog app does this automatically. I'll show you what this looks like. Down here, there's this little icon. And this right here, actually, this is actually what's kind of cool. This is actually filtered. So it's only showing blog posts that were in that fit. Now, if I go back to the general one, this is a machine readable. So like other sites that are interested in your content, they can pull this content in. Or anyone use Flipboard on the iPad? Flipboard pulls this stuff in. It makes really interesting layouts. There's all kinds of different things that can use this content. And you can actually set up Facebook to pull this stuff in, and other platforms that are out there. So it's important that we've got the feed. There are a few other more advanced ways of doing it. In fact, the other thing you can do is you can actually take content from other feeds and bring them into your website if you want. This is a great way that, let's say, for example, you have, there's a feed that might be coming from some bicycle race. And you can subscribe to that feed and show it as a block or show that content on your website, even though it's coming from another website. There are more advanced ways of doing this. There's these APIs. I'm not going to get much into it. It's very technical how APIs work. But a lot of times APIs will give you a lot of very detailed information. And This is where that application framework part comes in, is that you can basically go and program and work with pretty much any API that's out there, even if feeds aren't available. So the last part we have is SEO and social media. How are we going to promote our posts now that they're written? And that's going to be the last section. So I'm going to give everyone a break.